Thank you, Steve, for your short and very much to the point talk. There's this wonderful poem that in the Moomin Quan, so the Moomin Quan is this collection of koans that was collected in China. I think it was the Sung Dynasty. I'm not exactly sure. Um, and by this monk named Mumon, which means no gate. The Zen master named Mumon, which means no gate. So it's the no gate, and then the Kan means checkpoint. Um, like in a, like if you're crossing borders, then you have to go through customs. So the there's this very famous story where a monk goes to Zen Master Joju, in Chinese Zhaozhou, and asks, why did Bodhidharma come to China? And Bodhidharma was who brought Zen to China from India, supposedly, but that's not what Joju says. What Joju says is the cypress tree in the garden, and this is a very, very famous koan. And then Mumon's poem is words cannot show truth, speech cannot point to nature. One who holds words is dead. One who attaches to sentences is lost. And that was basically Steve's talk. So thank you very much, Steve. Yeah. So are there any questions? Just unmute yourself and ask. Yes, Spencer.
Hi, I have a question I've been thinking about for about a week now. And it has to do kind of with what the Dharma talk was about today with meditation and kind of the role it plays, because reading a lot of Master Sung San's teachings, um, he and a lot of the stories from the sutras, it's all it's a lot of don't know mind, only go straight. And then a lot of the stories where someone achieves enlightenment, it's they get hit by their master, or they are doing something other than meditating. So just wanted to kind of and get some thoughts on how meditation fits into all of that.
Yeah, so meditation doesn't fit in anywhere. You just do it. Um, and enlightenment is an extremely bad translation of the word bodhi, which means awake. So it should be, how do you wake up? So it should not be this monk attained enlightenment. It should be the monk woke up. And you wake up every day, right? So wake up to your true self. That's something most of us don't do every day. But you can do it any moment, any moment. And in all these stories, it's always something like, somebody falls down, or as you say, sometimes they get hit by a stick, because the old guys in the Tang and the early Sung, they were always hitting people. This is one of these kids don't try this at home things, but back in those days, that's what they did. And, oh, the bell sound, the sound of a dog barking, people fighting in the street, just something suddenly, whoa, and you wake up. Wow, look at that. So it's just like that. So what meditation is preparing the ground. Meditation is preparing the ground to wake up. So that ordinarily we're just really pulled about and pushed by our thinking and our desires, our anger, our ignorance. These things just pull and push us around. I, I had this image of, it's like there's this ocean, and we're these flowers floating on the ocean, but we don't realize is we have roots that go really, really deep down to the bottom of the ocean. We're really rooted, you know but we don't know that, so we just float around on the ocean, and we knock into each other, and then we feel bad about things and we feel good about things, and we just keep being sort of pushed around like that. But at base, we're really rooted. And so when you're practicing and all this stuff comes up and you can't act on it. Oh, I need to wash the dishes. You can't wash the dishes. Oh, I need to send this email. You can't send this email. Oh, I need to do this. You can't do that because you've committed, whether it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes. or during a retreat, you're committed to just sitting there. And so you learn not to follow this mind around. It's like we all have this carrot on the end of a stick. It's our own carrot on the end of our own stick, and we're like these donkeys following this carrot, you know? So meditation teaches us not to do that because we don't do that when we're practicing. I mean, maybe our mind might follow, but our body can't. And then eventually begin to realize, like Steve said, we're not our thoughts. This isn't who we are. We don't have to follow that. So that's meditation is like laying the groundwork. And then sometimes you wake up in meditation, sometimes you wake up and you never stay awake. No one ever stayed awake. Everyone goes back to sleep, and then you have to wake up again and again and again. And gradually you learn how to wake yourself up. So you don't need the alarm clock anymore. You just say, oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? Oh, like that. Okay? So thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Are there any other? Yeah. Tom.
Good morning. You said that we're rooted very deeply. What are we rooted in?
You already understand. This universe is all around you, and you are not separate from this universe. So my image was only an image. There are no flowers. There's no stalk. There's no root. Because already everything is interconnected. It's our minds that make the separation. It's our minds that say, there's Tom, there's Wenda, there's Judy. It's our minds that do that. But we're so totally interconnected in ways that we can't fathom. Okay? Thank you. Are there any other questions? It's short answer day.
Judy, just to add to what you're saying just a little bit, I reflect on a book written by from Suzuki Roshi, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. It goes back to a book I read many, many years ago and still stays with me in many ways. And he used a metaphor of the way we think of ourselves like a drop of water in a stream as it comes over a cliff and it breaks up into all these little droplets, and we see ourselves, and all the things that we have to do and the importance of what we feel and so on and so forth, not knowing that we go back into the stream again. And, for me, like when I stop and think about the beginnings of my serious meditation in Zen, when I would leave the Dharma room, almost a little confused about why I'm there and what I'm doing. The importance of who I am, how that fit into the process of meditation. And now when I sit and meditate, it's like, there's the nearness of that, a sense of freedom. And it's not something I can hold on to, but it's much clearer that I have to continue just doing it, and your thoughts about that, your comments about it.
Well, you said a lot. Thank you very much. Yeah, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind is a wonderful book. I also read it when I was starting to practice, and Shunryu Suzuki was a wonderful teacher. So just, scholarly, the image of water is used a lot, the metaphor of water in many ways. And one way is the way you said, the droplets, that they don't realize that they're coming from the stream and going back to the stream. And then there's another, the surface of the water getting disturbed by the wind, but deep down, nothing, the water's not moving. So there are many, many metaphorical uses of water. And, meditation is like brushing your teeth, right? You just do it. And as to why you do it, well, if you stop doing it, you'll discover why you do it. Just like brushing your teeth. If you stop brushing your teeth, you discover why you stop brushing your teeth, why you should brush your teeth. It's very simple. And yeah, when we start meditating, there is this mind that kind of goes, why am I doing this? You know, I could be doing other things. You know, when I was starting to meditate and, you know, I was single at the time, and you know, when you're single, you date a lot of people, and I dated this guy, and you know, he was a professor and I was a professor, and I told him I was meditating and I love meditation and all this stuff. And he said, "Oh," he said, "I went to a Quaker meeting once. You know, in Quaker meetings they just sit in silence." And he said, and so what I did is I worked on a paper I was writing. And I thought, why would you want to do that? You know, you have this privilege of sitting in silence with a bunch of people. Why would you want your mind? But you know, he said I didn't want to waste any time. So yeah, there's this, you know, sense when we're starting sometimes we say, why am I doing this? I'm just wasting my time. I could be doing other things, you know. It's like you think of of meditation, you know, sitting in silence, you think of it as you know, sort of like going to the beach or sitting by the pool, you know. Kind of thing. And of course, as we know, it's not that. It's really hard work. It's absolutely life changing. And but yeah, there's this mind that sort of comes up. Why am I doing this? But then if you've done it for a while and you stop doing it, you discover why you do it. Yeah, you can't name it. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be accurate. You can't. It's there. And yeah, I think most people here, you know, looking at almost everyone I'm looking at has been practicing for a really long time, and you know why you do it. So thank you for your question. Yeah, I don't know if I answered it, but anyway, okay. Any other questions? Because
I have a question.
sure.
Yeah, Judy, yeah, there are many different techniques that, you know, we practice. There's meditation, you know, reading sutra and then bowing and all this. So I was wondering, you know, can you just share maybe your experience or what you know that in different stage of the practice, say, you know, the first 2 years of beginning Zen meditation, the middle 20 years, I don't know, maybe the later, you know, 40 years later, in different stage, usually how long do you spend on each of this practice? Let's say at the beginning or 2 year, you spend, you know, half of the time doing medication, but the other time doing other things. But later you do, you know, meditation that's most helpful. Like just how do you manage, say we only have certain amount of time each day at each stage of our practice. What is the best way of, you know, allocating the time?
So there's no stages of practice. That's really important in Zen. In some forms of practice, like in Theravada practice, Southeast Asia practice, you know, Thailand, Myanmar, places like that, there they do have stages. But our style, there are no stages. So everybody is equal in the Dharma room. I mean, some people have permission to teach in certain ways, but basically we're all equal. So there are no stages. Different times in people's lives, they do different things. So together, we do sitting meditation, we do walking meditation, which people think of as, oh, I've been sitting for a long time, I've really got to move my legs, I'm going crazy, and then you get to walk, but it's actually a form of meditation. And there are many different kinds of sitting meditation, there are many different kinds of walking meditation. I'll just talk a little bit about sitting meditation. So Zen practice, we're always directed towards the great question, whether that's our practice or not, that's always our direction. So the practice may be counting breaths, maybe saying a mantra, maybe actually asking the great question, maybe great question plus don't know. We have these, and there are other practices too, but they all have the property of being very simple, having no intellectual content whatsoever. They're really stupid and simple-minded, and that's why they work, because they don't give this part of our brain anything to hold on to. And they do give us something to come back to. So Japanese Soto Zen, they do this practice called shikantaza. It's a form of meditation where you don't have a specific thing you keep coming back to. But we're a Lin Chi school, and we come back to some very simple-minded practice. So when our mind goes away, we have something very specific to bring it back to. So that's our sitting meditation. And then walking meditation, there's some forms where, like Thich Nhat Hanh taught this way, where when you walk, you're very conscious. Your heel comes down, then the rest of your foot, then your toe, then your other foot, and you're doing that. And you're very aware, and you walk very slowly. But again, we're a Lin Chi school. So Lin Chi was a very famous Chinese Zen master, 8th century, I believe, 9th. So we walk fairly fast. And what we're doing is we're keeping our practice going, whether it's counting our breaths or mantra or a great question, whatever it is. We keep our practice going, but we don't get distracted. And that's really easy. I mean, imagine if I was walking in this room. I've got this beautiful, beautiful calligraphy by Steve Addis. It's Great Way, No Gate. It's a classic Zen saying, and it's the no gate is actually in our Dharma room. He did another one for us, and so it's this beautiful calligraphy. But if I'm doing walking meditation, I don't stop and say, "Wow, that's really beautiful," and it is. But no, I just keep walking. So it's keeping our minds from being, pulled this way and pulled that way. So walking meditation, and then we have chanting. And chanting is an interesting practice. I'll be very honest, I don't do chanting practice when I'm practicing at home. When I go on long solo retreats, I do extra chanting. And then, of course, in the Zen Center, I do whatever chanting is scheduled. And chanting practice is very interesting because it really gives us feedback. You can really see your mind just, wait a minute, where am I in this chant? What just happened, You can see that going by. There's certain places where I sort of know the translation and I really like it, and I try to pay attention to those places when they come up, and suddenly I realize, wait, I'm at the end of a chant. I didn't pay attention once, I might have chanted it correctly, but I wasn't here, I don't know where I was, So chanting it's wonderful feedback. And the other thing about chanting is when we chant, even if we're chanting alone, what we're really doing is listening. We're really listening. And this becomes very apparent when we chant on Zoom, because you can only hear one voice or maybe two people, like, me and my husband, or Tom and Wenda. But if you chant too loudly, they're going to change pitch on you, or you're going to change pitch on them, and you won't realize that. And suddenly you realize, like, oh my God, we're like 5 notes apart, or maybe they go faster or slower, you go faster. So trying to keep together when you're on Zoom is really interesting. You really have to pay attention. And of course, when we're together, you really have to pay attention. So chanting practice is really about paying attention. And then bowing practice, prostrations. I won't demonstrate one now. That's a really wonderful practice because you get completely down on the floor, and then you get completely up and completely down and completely up. And it kind of rewires your nervous system without you even realizing that's happening. You over time, as you do these practices, and what we recommend, and actually my main practice when my son was a toddler, this is about the only practice I did unless I was at the Zen Center, because if he saw me doing this, he knew I was busy. But if he saw me sitting, then he'd say, a lap to sit in, and then I couldn't sit because he was sitting in my lap. But I could do prostrations because Mommy's busy, okay, So I would do prostrations. That was my practice. 108 prostrations every day, and your center becomes really strong. And it really is biological, because we're apes, and when you get completely down, I won't demonstrate because computer everything, when you're completely down there and your head is down on the floor and your butt, excuse me, is slightly in the air, you are completely vulnerable. You are totally vulnerable. And then you come up again, and then you go down, and then you come up, and then you go down. And it's like it's wired in. And you, out of this vulnerability comes this real strength in your center, in your chan, what the Japanese call your hara, the part more martial arts is always talking about. That becomes very strong. And also your heart becomes open. It's kind of like miraculous. Your heart becomes very open when you do these prostrations. So prostrations is a great practice. And then we have kongans, which are these, does a dog have Buddha nature? And Jojo answered moo. And well, does a dog have Buddha nature, So we have this kongan practice, which here we do on retreats, and we also do it on Saturday mornings when we don't have retreats or classes. And very few people come to that. And hint, hint, more people should come to Kongan practice. And because you're faced with these questions, and what does your mind do? Your ordinary thinking mind is not going to work. Your mind that makes distinctions, your like and dislike mind, your mind that plans and everything, that mind doesn't work on these. So you have to return to your original mind when you're answering kongans. And it's incredibly difficult because we're all, however long we've been alive, subtract 2 years, because 2 is when you first started talking, most of us. Maybe you were a prodigy, maybe you were a little slow, but most of us subtract 2 years, and then that's how long you've been encouraged to not use that original mind. And so to really become intimate with that, and also become intimate with failure, because almost all the time you're going to be wrong, and to become intimate with it's okay. It's not important what the teacher thinks of me. Although, hint, we always think you're wonderful no matter who you are. But, it's not important whether I get this right or wrong. What's important is to do the work. And that mindset, and believe me, it takes years or decades to learn not to freak out because you got something wrong. And it takes a really long time to, not let this ego push you around where I have the answer. I know that they're going to think I'm wonderful. I remember when I first started, I had this idea of, I'm going to give this answer that's so great that, Zen Master Sung San is going to make me a Zen Master on the spot. That's ridiculous. So we all have this kind of ego that we bring to it, the fear of somebody looking down on us, the desire to have someone approve us. And over time, in Kongan practice, because we keep falling down and falling down and falling down, over time we realize that that is just not important. That, being attached to this desire for approval is just not important. They're the 5 desires, right? For food, for sleep, for sex, for money, and for fame, which really means being liked. And that's the hardest one to deal with. So, yeah, Kongan practice helps us a lot with that. Plus, that getting in touch with our true nature, our original mind. So did I leave any form of practice out? I think I got all of them. But we do these at all stages. Now, in your life, like when I had a toddler, I couldn't sit at home. Somehow my husband could, but, maybe my husband's lap wasn't as interesting. But, so at different points in your life, you will find it's sometimes you can put more time into practice. Sometimes you can put less time into practice. Like when you're a caregiver full time, it's really hard to put a lot of time into practice because there's this other person that your job is to take care of. So it's not dependent on what stage we're on and this, thing of, I've been practicing for 40 years. I don't have to do that anymore. It's not like that. It's just you find your life balance between your obligations and between your impetus to practice. You find that balance, and then it'll change over time. Okay? So Thank you for giving me an excuse to talk about all our forms of practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have time for one very short question, if there is one.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi.
Hi, so what is it like to be awake? So you mentioned being awake, right? And how would you describe your experience being awake? And how do you know that you're awake rather than in a different kind of dream? Like, so,
If you know you're awake, you're not awake.
okay.
Then you have this eye. Oh, look at me, I'm awake. And if you know you're awake, you're not awake. That's very simple. Okay? So just wake up. That's all. There's no experience in it. There's no like, like it's not like an experience that you can encapsulate and tell your friends about. Oh man, I went to this great concert. Oh man, I had this great awakening experience. It's not like that.
Mhm.
You know, just the head of our school, Zen Master Song Hyang, Barbara Rhodes, everyone calls her Bobby. She has this great saying. She says, "Everyone wakes up 400 or 500 times a day.
Mm.
Everyone wake up all the time, and then we go back to sleep, and then we wake up and we go back. That's just, it's not special. It's really not special. There's this wonderful kangan where um, uh, Joju asked Namchan, uh, what is the true way? And Namchan says, everyday mind is the true way. So everything is absolutely fantastically special at every moment. So everyday mind doesn't mean boring mind. It means, wow, everything you look at, everything you look at already has it, and you already have it. And seeing that, but that's just normal. It's every day, all around us. All we have to do is just open our eyes, and it's not special. It's really not special. Okay?
Yep. Mm.
So
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, all right. So let's see. We have a retreat.